What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. Now, we just had night 1 of Wrestlemania 37, and now it's time for night 2. Join us now as Wrestlelamia recaps all the matches from night 2 and analyzes the show for the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now, Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil open up WrestleMania and they're dressed as pirates. Yeah, Hogan still gets booed from the crowd. It's just the most awkward pairing ever. After they open up, it's now time for Randy Orton versus The Fiend, who's with Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss shows up after Randy Orton's entrance with a giant jack-in-the-box. The Fiend isn't extra crispy anymore, and Bliss turns the handle and he emerges back to his original handsome self. The Fiend fights off repeated attacks from Orton and counters an RKO. However, fire erupts from each ring post, and Alexa emerges from the jack-in-the-box with a crown of thorns on her head as black ooze pours out from her head as the Fiend watches on. He turns around and eats an RKO, with the Viper getting a surprise pinfall victory. After the match, the lights go out, and when they turn back on, The Fiend and Bliss are gone. The fans begin to heavily boo. Swashbuckle mateys Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan are backstage with WWE Hall of Famer Eric Bischoff when Bayley shows up and suggests she co-hosts WrestleMania. Hogan and Bischoff bail, leaving Titus to have to deal with Bayley. At least they got her into the show somehow. It's now time for the Women's Tag Team Championship match as champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler take on Natalya and Tamina. The challengers start off strong, but Jax and Baszler's power and sheer viciousness turns the tide. The babyfaces rally with Natalya locking Nia Jax in the sharpshooter, but unbeknownst to her, Baszler mates the tang and the Queen of Spades comes in, dispatching Natalya with a Kirifuda clutch. Oddly enough, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler actually retain. Next up, it's Sami Zayn, who's with Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens. Logan Paul sits at ringside whilst he's being heavily booed, while Owens pummels Zayn until a misstep allows Sami to get the advantage. Lots of fisticuffs, a Michinoku driver, a Blue Thunder Bomb, and a Helluva kick from Sami, but he can't pin Owens. KO hits super kicks and tells Zayn he brought him on himself before hitting the stunner and covering Zayn for the 1-2-3. Yeah, that leg slap rule kinda sailed. Logan Paul then checks on Sami after the match, then goes to shake KO's hand. Sami is furious and gets in Logan's face, reminding him that he's Sami's guest of honor. Logan shoves Zayn down to the mat, then raises Owens' hand in victory. KO gives Paul the hairy eyeball and feigns shaking his hand before kicking him in the gut and hitting the stunner. Logan Paul gives probably one of the best sells ever. Backstage, United States Champion Matt Riddle interacts with WWE Hall of Famers The Great Khali and RVD. Riddle wants to market a giant-sized scooter and call it the Khali Trolley, but then RVD hands them both some RVD rolling papers. Oh, and now he seems to understand Hindi. Then it's time for the United States Championship match as champion Matt Riddle takes on Sheamus. Sheamus starts off strong, but Riddle hasn't forgot about the Celtic Warrior beating him down and is looking for revenge. Sheamus is clearly looking to destroy Riddle as he goes for a white noise off the top rope, but falls off. That was a really scary spot. Riddle avoids a brogue kick and goes for a springboard moonsault, but unfortunately for the champ, Sheamus blasts Riddle in the face with a brogue kick and pins him for the win as Riddle is busted open. Sheamus is the new United States Champion. After that, we then get the Nigerian drum fight for the Intercontinental Championship as champion Big E takes on Apollo Crews. Now we finally get to know what a Nigerian drum match is. It's basically an Extreme Rules match with drums. Yeah, the match starts off with both men wielding kendo sticks, blasting each other with the weapons. However, Big E gets the advantage and goes to work punishing Crews. But just when it looks like the champion is going to put Crews away, a giant, aka former Raw Underground fighter Dabba-Kato, dressed in a military uniform, enters the ring and lays out Big E with a chokeslam, putting Crews on top of the champion for the win. Apollo Crews is the new Intercontinental Champion. After that, the WWE honors the 2021 Hall of Fame class. We then get the Raw Women's Championship match as champion Asuka takes on Rhea Ripley. Now, this match is not a technical masterwork, but a well-crafted tale of Asuka's experience and technical skills versus Ripley's technical skills, size, and power. Ripley repeatedly thwarts the Empress of Tomorrow's attempts to submit her, utilizing a power advantage over Asuka, and in the end, she hits the Riptide, covering Asuka for the win and is now the new Raw Women's Champion. Titus O'Neil then comes out to thank the fans present at Raymond James Stadium for making tonight so special. Bayley interrupts the two Hall of Famers and says she's tired of them stealing her spotlight. Then out of nowhere, the Bella twins show up and Bayley insults them, reminding them that John Cena isn't there. Damn, that was cold. And the Bella twins say ding dong goodbye as Bayley foolishly swings at them, only to get a twin beatdown. And now it's time for the main event, as it's a triple threat match for the Universal Championship, as champion Roman Reigns, who's with Heyman and Uso, takes on Edge and Daniel Bryan. It's a wild three-way tussle as Jey Uso does his best to help Roman, only to get laid back. Things look bad for the champion when Edge applies a crossface to Reigns, and then Daniel Bryan attacks Roman's arm, locking in the yes lock. This infuriates Edge, who goes after Bryan and Roman, attacking each man with a steel chair. Edge delivers a concerto to Bryan, then goes after Roman. However, Jey Uso runs in, saving Roman and giving the tribal chief time to recover. Reigns hits a spear and delivers a concerto to Edge, covering both Bryan and Edge to retain the Universal Championship as Wrestlemania comes to a close. But that was a quick recap. What about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly? As always, we start off with the good as number 1, Mr. Brodie Lee tribute. A short can definitely be sweet, as the Fiend shouted yeah 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 during his match, sending a shout out to the late great Mr. Brodie Lee. This is the Fiend's first match ever since Brodie Lee passed away. Number 2, a magnificent match, a fun finish. Owens vs Zayn was everything the WWE Universe expected, with both superstars putting on a fantastic seesaw battle. This match wasn't just a good match, it was a good reprieve after 2 badly booked matches. After the match's escapades involving Logan Paul, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were predictable, they were nonetheless fun finish to a magnificent match. Number 3, a much deserved win. Apollo Crews is one of the most underrated WWE superstars, and it was refreshing to see him capture the IC Championship from Big E. While Big E fans may despair that the New Day member just lost the IC strap, despair not, as they likely have bigger things for him. Don't be surprised to see him put in some main event feuds as he's positioned to challenge for the Universal Championship, much like Bobby Lashley's US Championship loss was a stepping stone to the WWE Championship, and look for Big E's loss to be a prelude to a phenomenal push. Number 4, a terrific tag team tussle. Tonight's Women's Tag Team Championship match was surprisingly good, with the WWE booking Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler as dominant champions, but also elevating Tamina and Natalya as a gutsy team to keep an eye on. While they should have gone with crowning new champions, especially if it plans on splitting up Jax and Baszler that they've been hinting at for so much, this match stood out on its own and actually received a good amount of time to tell an entertaining story. Number 5, a surprise appearance. The Apollo Crews vs Big E match featured the surprise return of former Raw Underground performer Dabba Kato. According to Ringside News, they trademarked the name Commander Aziz, so it seems like Dabba will debut on the Blue brand with this new name. Do you think it will work in the ring, or is he just a bodyguard? Number 6, a night of new champions. The WWE didn't hold back crowning new champions tonight, including a new US champion, a new Intercontinental champion, and a new Raw Women's champion. Sometimes it's good to shake things up, and in all 3 instances, wins are much deserved. Hopefully this is more than Vince McMahon wanting to keep the fans guessing, and hopefully it's the beginning of something new and engaging storylines for the 3 new champions as Sheamus, Crews and Ripley head for new heights. Number 7, a true WrestleMania moment. Reigns vs Edge vs Daniel Bryan was a mighty main event, with all 3 superstars looking like they were on the cusp of victory, only for things to take a surprising but sensible swerve. While Jey's interference was tiresome, the match itself was great, with some fantastic near falls and an ending that made sense. More importantly, it gave Reigns the much needed momentum he lacked in the early months of his Universal Championship reign. Why did they keep the belt on him though? Be sure to find out why in a future video. And number 8, Night 2 triumphs. Now, whilst Night 2 wasn't as good as Night 1 in our opinion, it still had a good number of matches. While the Randy Orton vs Fiend fizzled, the rest of the show shined with engaging in-ring action and unexpected finishes that were cleverly booked, such as Sheamus countering Riddle's moonsault with a Brogue kick, and Rhea Ripley getting a decisive but not dominant win over veteran grappler Asuka. But whilst that was the good, what about the bad is number 1, the return of the red light. And no one seemed to miss the red light that used to shine for the Fiend's matches, so why the hell did they bring it back? This may be the least of the Fiend's problems though after his shocking loss to Randy Orton. Number 2, the dull duo. The idea of having Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil co-host WrestleMania 37 had to look good on paper, as they could use 2 charismatic stars to add some fun to the show. The thing is though that this pairing was just not working. They could have just had Titus on his own. The Hulkster just wasn't needed. Number 3, Vintage Cole. A longtime wrestling fans like to joke about Vince McMahon's awful announcing skills, but Michael Cole made the case for himself this weekend that he was just poor. Night 1 featured Cole blowing the call in the main event, announcing Sasha Banks kicked out when in fact she'd been pinned. Tonight's blunder wasn't as bad, but it was hilarious as Cole described the Fiend's giant jack-in-the-box as a box-like structure. Now, with rumors of the WWE getting a new announcer on Raw, perhaps it's time to get a new one on SmackDown, as Cole is either burnt out beyond help. But that was the bad. What about the downright ugly? The Fiend's burial. Regrettably, an otherwise magnificent second night of wrestling was tainted by the Orton vs. Fiend bout. The opening match between The Fiend and Randy Orton featured a spectacular entrance, a sly Brodie Lee tribute, and the return of The Fiend's original look. However, they absolutely buried The Fiend, not only with an incomprehensible ending, but with The Fiend getting pinned after one RKO. Yeah, this is the same guy who kicked out of 11 curb stomps at Hell in a Cell 2019, not to mention kicking out of the spear and other finishes. How did it just take one RKO in this case? Even Triple H is kicked out of an RKO, for Christ's sake. If this was the WWE's blow-off to the Fiend vs. Orton feud, it was even worse than the original rumored squash match where Orton was to count the lights in the blink of an eye. Hopefully WWE can salvage this with what's going on between Alexa Bliss and The Fiend. As are they on the same page together? Will Bliss turn heel on The Fiend? But there you have it, guys, our recap of Night 2, as well as the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. Let us know what you thought of the show, and was it better than Night 1? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.